Right. Good afternoon. Fun drawing. Let's let everybody in. With the cat with the big red eyes, please. Oh, it's you, Rose. As long as I know who it is, I can manage. Let's see. I want to give another minute or two, get some more people in the room. Seems like a slightly small group today. Stage. All right. Hello, everybody. Let's just see. Ah, let me just let a couple more people in. Let's see. Got a couple people just on the threshold of the doorway. Let's give them a minute. All right, guys, let's I need an assistant to stand just by the door, you know. Hello, come right in. You know, like a host in a restaurant. All right, welcome everybody. Are you hearing me? Everyone just froze.
Yes.
Yeah.
You are? Oh, because everyone froze on my end at once. And I got one of those your internet is unstable warnings. Hate those things. Okay, let me tell you what we have in store, both in short term right now and just a little peek at what we can expect from the rest of the semester. Today's more animation, you know, and a bunch of you seem to really been enjoying that. I'm not sure that everybody has, but in a course like this, each subject is so different that I don't really expect everyone to like them all equally. Um, but I want to tell you what you can expect going forward. We're going to take a detour from animation, and I think probably starting on Thursday, very brief detour, 2 days maybe, where I want to integrate another topic that also has motion involved. Uh, it has more interactivity involved, and it's called P5. And I usually do this, by the way. You might have noticed. Whenever we're on the cusp of something new, I like to warn you a little ahead of time. So this is a little unusual though, because we're going to do animation today as we have the last few classes. We're going to take a very brief detour, as I said, into P5, and then we're going to return to animation. So I just want to say a little bit about that. P5 is programming, right? And there's not going to be any significant tests on the P5 segment. It's just something that I want to expose you to, and the school at large wants to expose you to. Now, gee, that doorbell's just ringing off the hook today. So here's the idea. You know, the way this class has worked, I've arranged it so that each topic has some kind of natural flow with the subject that follows it. You know, we started with HTML and CSS. We needed photos. So a little bit of Photoshop came into play. And then we moved right into the Photoshop section. And each time I do my best to create some kind of natural flow from one of the subjects of this multimedia class to the next subject. So, you know, you would think I would have put the programming stuff, this P5 programming, way back when we did HTML and CSS. And there's a few reasons why I didn't do that. One was we needed photography to complete that part, the whole web design part of the class. So that kind of bumped that idea of doing more programming at that point. Also, we just needed some relief. Just too much code back to back, in my opinion. So why am I choosing on Thursday? And I said, I don't want to promise, but that's my current plan, is to take a little detour for 2 classes to this programming language. Well, I had to fit it in somewhere, right? And I would like to be able to return to animation at the end for the final project. So this is what's going to happen. Today, we're going to do some stuff with kinetic type. So it's a form of animation that leans on words. All right, you can get a taste of what that's like. On Thursday, probably next Tuesday, we're going to take a little detour to something completely different. This JavaScript related language called P5, which should be pretty interesting. And it also involves motion. So there is a relationship with what we've been doing lately, particularly to animation. But then after that, we're going to return to animation, strangely. And we're going to focus at that point again on kinetic type, on type that moves, on words that move, because we're going to wrap it all up with the final project, which will be kinetic type. So the last and big and final project, I wouldn't say the biggest. In my opinion, it's actually smaller than the website was, the graffiti project. But we'll be returning, and I'm going to do a very healthy review at that point and include new stuff. Today's sort of an introduction to the idea. There'll be a day or even two to work on the project in the class after that review session. And if there's any time left in the semester, right, which there may be, I have some extra stuff that I'd like to include if we can get there. There's some stuff that I know some of you would very much enjoy that falls in the window of multimedia, but is not officially part of this course. So I save it for the end to see if there's time. And if there is, that will probably be a little time in Adobe Illustrator, which is a wonderful program that relates to several of your majors. So let me just recap. We're doing some more animation today, focusing on words, right? Then we're going to come back to that subject later in the semester after a short detour into some programming, right? Anybody have any questions before I move forward? Not yet. Too soon. No. Okay. So I do want to apologize for my incredibly late responses to your email. A bunch of you heard from me maybe 15 minutes ago, 20 minutes ago. I have answered everything sent to me, but rather late. So if you've been waiting to hear from me, check your email a little later today. At the end of the semester, it really is an avalanche of correspondence. It's almost impossible to keep up with. All right, so it goes. I want to get a look at the handout, make sure I didn't forget anything, and then move right into the new material. So I'm sharing my screen. Is everybody seeing my screen? Cool. All right. Usual stuff. Videos are up to date. The last homework was on class 19. It was the video project. If there's some reason why a person can just not do that, send me the most thoughtful email about why, and I may be able to come up with a alternative, quite possibly. I've not updated grades since November 10th, so looks like a week ago, right? But at that point, your grades were up to date. And if you have not visited Blackboard, you owe it to yourself to have a peek, just to be sure that everything's been recorded and, to find out if you owe me anything. I've been mentioning tutoring times. Anyone who's interested in online, which is a great idea. If you're challenged in a particular subject, you should definitely visit this link on your own time. Everybody's here, so you'll know about the new Zoom link. I'm not going to comment on that. All right, we're still in Adobe Animate. I want to jump right in because what we're going to be doing is taking the last stuff we worked on, which was classic tweening, and using that to make words move. So let's just jump right into Animate. I got a message from one or two people that they're either in between computers or some similar reason why they can't physically participate today. If that's the case for you, I'm glad you're here anyway. Do your best, take notes. All right, let's open up Animate. While it's opening, I want to say something about type, making type move. It's probably the #1 most common form of animation. If I wanted to be picky about my words, I might say motion graphics instead. Because you don't think of words as animation, right? You think of characters. You think of Bugs Bunny or Mickey Mouse but in all those cases, yes, that's animation proper. And its close relative is motion graphics, when we make words move or symbols move or shapes move. But every TV commercial you watch, and let's face it, half of them are cars, right? So the car is a video, but the text over the car moves to tell you its name and its safety features and its price. So kinetic type is huge in the commercial arena. All right, as you know, whenever we get to this stage, I always use the file menu and I go file menu new. And I'm choosing my size and the frame rate, the number of frames per second. I think I am going to stick with the size called standard. So that's 4 wide by 480 tall and the frame rate 24. This is most important though, the frame rate of 24. If you change it and your computer set to 30, that means either you have to do 6 more drawings a second, or you're actually going to perfect it and you won't know why. So this has to say 24. Let's click create. I'm going to do a very fast warm-up about creative classic tweening. I mean to say classic tweening. You know, there's 4, maybe 5 animation techniques available in Adobe Animate, frame by frame. Do you remember the ball going? That was frame by frame. We drew each drawing frame by frame. There is shape tweening, which we got a taste of and then left. It's a way to have 2 drawings, and the computer takes care of the change between them. So a circle can turn into a square. Shape tweening. The reason I did that very quickly is, you know, to my mind, it's a messy technology. You know, there's a lot that it can't do that we just need. So as fun as it is, it's sort of limited. Then there's classic tweening and motion tweening, and people like to fight between which one is better. We're choosing classic tweening for the remainder of the semester. All right, I'd like for everybody to join me in a quick exercise. This isn't going to take long, but it'll help you understand what we're doing. Could everybody get the rectangle tool? Either from the bottom of the toolbar or from the right side on the properties palette, I want you to pick a fill color. Hey guys, let's wait. Let's stop for a second. I want to do something different for a minute. Let's change the stage color. Every time I teach this, I think, hey, Ira, you should tell them to change the stage color first, you know, because that's going to affect all the other decisions. Now, the stage color is dealt with over here on the right side on the properties palette. If by any chance this palette is closed, you go to the window menu, alphabetical order. Well, this one's actually not. Take it back. You go right to properties, turn it on. Okay. All right, you should be seeing on the properties palette a background color. And if you're not, this is why, probably why. The properties palette has 4 tabs underneath it. And we want to be on the one called doc. That's just short for document. We're going to give the whole document a background color. All right, let's click this box here, excuse me, next to the word that says stage. And it'll let you just roll over them to see what color you're in the mood for. The phrase that we're going to be using is peace is always wonderful. Let me just make sure. No, peace is always beautiful, right? So it's a peace quote, right? That might affect the color you choose. I don't know. You can pick any color that you feel like using. All right. All right, that's just a background color. Doesn't even get a layer. So we're just going to just leave that be. Listen, I know we're just warming up. Did everybody find the background color? Do you need a hand? I really don't mind. So it's always on the right. The only thing is this particular version of the program broke the properties palette into several tabs. So it is possible you're looking at the wrong tab under properties. It's definitely the one called doc. Okay, so it goes. Let's get the rectangle tool. And I'd like you to put a rectangle in the lower left. Mine's kind of big. So I'm going to change its size with this tool. This is called the free transform tool. And the tool lets me select just like the black arrow does, but it does some cool tricks. So I'm going to double click this object. The free transform tool is one we may use a lot today. We'll see. I just want it to be smaller. And then I'm going to drag it down into the corner. Okay. I want to focus on classic tween basics and do it kind of quickly. Once you have artwork to classic tween it, you have to create a graphic symbol. So you take the artwork and convert it to be a graphic symbol. I have like 5 animation majors in this room, right? So those people are going to use different kinds of symbol. So you want to make sure that you make your artwork into a symbol right away. And here's the way it works. Make sure it's selected. If you have a stroke on it, make sure that's also selected, right? you might have to double click it. Then control click or right click right on the new artwork. So not the stage, not the timeline, this little rectangle you made. Right click or control click. And at the bottom of this menu, it says convert to symbol. There are 3 symbol types, and I want you to be sure you're choosing graphic. I'm just going to call the artwork box, and I click OK. So all you did was select the artwork, you right clicked or control clicked, and chose convert to symbol from the bottom of the menu. Now on the right side, right next to the properties palette, is something called library. They're usually right next to each other. Why my library is so big? Let me just pull that in a little bit. If you click on the library tab, you could see you just added a symbol to the library. Symbols always live in the library. So if you think you made a symbol, you go to the library and it's empty, okay, that's a bad sign, right? Your hand must have slipped or something. Once it's a graphic symbol, you're at the wheel. The next step, so let's face it, let's get clear about it. You make the artwork, you turn it into a graphic symbol, that's step 2. The third step is you turn on classic tween from the timeline. So you draw, make symbol, and then go right to the timeline, which I'm going to do right now. So the timeline is large, and we only have 1 layer right now, so that simplifies things. You want to go to the keyframe. The keyframe is that black dot. Now, black keyframe means there's artwork in it. So that's the keyframe with the rectangle in it. I want you to go right to that keyframe, and again, right click or control click. Now you want to make sure you're choosing this one, create classic tween. I don't want motion tweening today, it's different steps. Create classic tween. Before we move forward, I want to point something out. Sometimes you right click on the artwork, and sometimes you right click on a keyframe in the timeline. Those are the 2 main places you're likely to click. If it's an artwork, it's usually because you're changing the artwork, you're making it a symbol. It's something about that object on the stage. If you right click on a keyframe in the timeline, you're usually giving instructions to time, how time's going to behave, right? And we're going to treat it with a classic tween. So if you turned on classic tween, you've got this purplish bar here that comes right up to frame 24. So it's giving you a whole second to work with. I could do anything I want in this second, but frankly, I want 2 seconds. Guys, don't be shy about asking me questions, all right? Okay. So if you want 2 seconds, you look along the timeline till frame 48, and you'll notice it even says 2 seconds above it, because our frame rate is 24 frames per second. So I'm going to frame 48, I'm clicking right inside layer 1, but in that slot. And I want to use the magical F5 key. Now on my keyboard, I have to hold down FN with it, the function key, and then I tap F5. So, I see a few of you and a bunch of you disappeared, which makes me think my internet's acting weird. Give me any kind of heads up if you suddenly don't hear me, or something like that.
All I see is
I just want to say something. In this class, there's 2 F. Say it again, Jason.
All I see is just screen freezing and then your audio like buzzing in and out. So it sounds like I'm interrupting you here.
Right, I know things happening to you.
Yeah.
Really? I hope. Do I sound like some kind of weird alien robot? That's
It's just
sometimes.
No, you sound normal.
for me. I think it's just for me. It's just cutting out,
Got
which
it.
I'm probably have to check later.
Yeah, I think we're all having different performance on Zoom right now. All right, we'll work with it. Okay, I just want to back up for a minute. We've discussed F6 and we've discussed F5. We're going to use both today. 5 is just filler. It just adds more time. So it's a way to add frames to the given layer, even to a part. In most cases, the last keyframe. Up again. There are 2 keys, right? F5 we just used to extend the timeline. All right, the rest is kind of easy, and I want to tell you what we're going to do. I want to make
Professor, you're all lag. Oh shit.
Shit.
It is.
Oh, I guess we sit back and wait.
Diamond, did I disappear for a minute there? Everybody.
Yeah, you
Oh,
did.
now you're back. Now you're back.
Welcome back.
Look.
I was ready to kick back and
Yeah.
wait.
All right. Yeah, everybody, please be patient. I'm going to move to. That was extra weird. I don't mean to give you guys a tour of my house, but I'm going to go to where there's a faster connection. This is part of our life now. These weird, it's like a GoPro or something. I'm, oh, here we go. Let's see. At least my house is neat today, so I don't have to be teacher embarrassed. Kind of.
Would have been more interesting if it wasn't neat.
That would be a relief. In your heart, we're as human as everybody else, but we like to make believe that we're not. All right, I think I'm going to be good. The internet's better in here. Sorry about that, guys. Okay. What I'm trying to describe is our plan is we want that little square to go like this, up to the top on a diagonal, come down, hit the bottom, the floor, up again, and then come down to the floor again. So basically it's reaching a peak on a diagonal, returning, then doing the same thing and coming down, an upside down W, right? So what that means is, let me just move stuff away here. What that means is, here's a keyframe. There's going to be one to get it here.
Professor?
Yes.
Do you have to share your screen?
Oh dear. Thank you. So have I been doing all of that? And Xu Ying, thank you. I wonder how long it was going to take. Oh man. I'm convinced that college semesters should be 10 weeks long. Think about it. You'd have 3 semesters a year, right? We'd break up the vacations. You had a big break in between them. In week 10, when your teachers get stupid, and possibly some of your peers, it'd be vacation time. You'd come back rested. You'd get the same amount of hours, right? Anyway, let me share my screen. Oh, I guess when I turned off before, it turned off my screen sharing. Anyway, thank you. All right, guys. I think this is where we left off anyway. So here's that object down here. I've got 48 frames. That's 2 seconds worth. And look at this. I got a keyframe already that represents this object, right? So that's keyframe 1. It's going to come up here. That will be 2. It's going to come down here, 3. Hit the ceiling again, 4, and end on 5. All right, here's the way we're going to do it. I'd like you to bring your playhead over. And I'm going to try, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9 frames over. And then I'm simply going to drag this object here. So first I dragged the playhead over to about frame 8. And when the playhead was there, I pulled the artwork to the top. Now, frame 1 still looks like this. Frame 8 looks like this. All right, let's go about 8 frames further. So about frame 16. And I'd like you to take it down to the floor, but about the middle of the floor. Remember, we're looking for this diagonal kind of movement. And you'll see, Animate made the keyframe for you. All right, let's go 8 frames further. So that would take us out to 23, roughly. Right, we're not doing math. And I want to take it back up to the ceiling, slightly on a diagonal. And I'm going to end it on frame 30. So if I bring the playhead over to frame 30, I'm going to pull it down to the right side corner. Now, whenever you're ready, you can manually grab the playhead, this blue bar, back to frame 1 and hit return to play it. Okay. Now, there's other things I want to do today, so I'm going to move forward quite a bit, but I want to tell you what's on my mind, really. that was just a simple way to get right at the essential elements. You know, this is the foundation of a classic tween. You drew the object, you made it into a symbol, right? Then after that, you went to the timeline and you asked for a classic tween. It turned purple and it gave you 1 second to work with, right? We added an extra second, you know, just we had a little extra time, right? But after that, all you did was move the playhead and relocate the object so that each keyframe on the timeline, and as I said, there are 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, each one represents a different location, and the computer tweened it. All the in-between parts the computer took care of. I want to, you know, I think what I'd like to do is move right into Kinetic Type, right? So we're going to go over similar steps, but for something deeper and more interesting, right? Okay. I'm going to ask everybody to open up a new document, file menu, new. I'm keeping it very clear, this part of the show. So same measurements, 640 by 480 and a frame rate of 24. Let's click create. All right, give me 1 second. I want to just take a peek at something. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to do pieces always beautiful. And we're even going to add a dash Walt Whitman, the guy who said it, right? Now, what's going to happen first is this. And I broke this down in a lot of details on today's handout, more detail than usual. But we're going to do it together. Could everyone find the type tool? Now, the first thing we're going to do, and this might sound rather surprising, is we're going to lay out text that looks a bit like a poster. But what's really going to happen to your audience is they're going to see one word come in, peace. Another word is always. Another word is beautiful. And then Walt Whitman for the credit. So when they first arrive, they're not going to see the entire quote. And they're not going to know who said it, right? And yet, we're going to design the end first. And I learned this trick from a company called Orange Design. And it's been great to me. So get the type tool. I'd like you to click about here. And I simply want you to type the word peace. Now, the first decision you make is, do I want lowercase letters or capital letters? That's up to you. Or do you want a mix? Now, the next thing I want you to do after you've typed the word peace, listen, I do want to mention one quick thing. Give me a second here. Don't do this and type. Don't drag a box and type. Just click and type. Now you're going to want to choose a font. My computer's remembering the last font that I used. You're going to want to choose one. So if you look on the right side, you got the library there and the properties palette. Please choose the properties palette. And it should know that you've got text there. Now, if I click on the current font and go to a different font, nothing happens because my text is not selected. So if you want to select it, there's 2 good ways. The easiest is to get the black arrow. You'll probably get a blue box, but if you don't, just click on it with the black arrow. Then if you come to the right, you'll see where it says character are all the elements for your font. And I'd like you to click on that little menu and notice they each have previews of fonts. I would also like to share a trick. If you highlight the current font, so I'm talking about on the property palette itself, notice how my font called Marker Felt, by the way, I hate this font. But anyway, I've highlighted it and I'm going to use the down arrow. Look at this. I'm actually previewing my fonts. If that doesn't work, because it does get stuck sometimes, then just click on the menu and pick something that way. So I'm looking for something that's going to interest me. Some of them are looking the same. Maybe my computer is fighting back with me right now. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit. So these words are going to move, which basically means you might want a font that's got some heft to it, you know, maybe slightly bold, not necessarily. All right. Once you chose a font, you're going to want to choose a size. Now the word peace is going to move in by itself. It's going to get a whole line. So in other words, it's going to kind of dominate the beginning of your animation. So I'm going to ask you to do this. If you look on the right, right beneath character, it says size. If I press and drag on the size, oh, again, I need my black arrow. If, you know, in my case, oh, there we go. I forgot that 96 is the largest. I'd like you to make yours really big. So there's several ways to do it, but the gist of it is make sure the text is highlighted. And I like doing that with the black arrow. Click on the current font size and drag left or right. Thing is, 96 is not big enough for me, right? It'll let me get bigger, but I have to type it in myself. I
Professor,
don't know why that is. Yes.
when I type, it's going downwards.
Really? So
Yeah.
let me check something out here. I've seen that before. Diamond, this is probably what happened. If you drag a box, and you might remember I said not to, right? And then try to type in it. Hang on a second there. Let me back up, see if I could do a better demo of that. So I drag a box. Well, this one is actually, let me see if that happens, right? That's what's happening, right? It's not fitting, so they're going down. So what you need to do is get the black arrow and delete what you have. Get the type tool. Make sure not to drag with the type tool. Just click once. And then you'll get the kind of box that grows with you as you type. So Diamond, let me know if I'm right, because I could be wrong. I just want to see if that works for you.
Thank you.
Great. Excellent. All right, folks. So once the word is there, right, you know, one could highlight a couple of letters, but I like to make sure the whole word is selected. So I prefer the black arrow at this stage. If the blue box is around it, it's all selected. So you could choose your font next. This is called phosphate. We don't have the same fonts. This is funny. There we go. So you choose from this menu. All right. A second there. I was saying that here's where the size is. The only problem is it maxes out at 96. If you'd like to see a larger font, and I do recommend a larger font, double click on 96 points. Just double click. It'll let you type your own number. So I'm going to type in 150 to see how big that is. And that was a lucky guess. I like that. So if you do need to type in a number yourself, double click the current size. All right. I want to say something about animating words. This is going to say peace is always beautiful. I do want the word peace to slide in, and I do want the word beautiful to slide in, but do I want the word is to slide in? Not really. Words like is, and, the, they're very unimportant. I really don't want anyone looking to see them slide around. So oftentimes we'll animate whole phrases. You know, we'll take 3 words or 4 words even and have them move as a unit. I want to try that with is always. So let's get the type tool again. Now I want you to be careful not to type inside of the current word. Go significantly underneath it so you don't accidentally click inside to change that word. We want to make a new block. So you click down here again, click, don't drag, and write is always. Now my font, I kind of wish I hadn't chose it, but I don't want to change it now, has no lowercase letters. It's what's called an all caps font. So I'm going to have to stick with this. Otherwise, I probably would have made this phrase lowercase letters. Let peace be capitals and beautiful be capitals, but I'm okay with this. I got a new issue though. About size, I already showed you that you could change the size like that. Of course, I'd have to select it. So I could go like that, or I could simply get the black arrow and I could change size like we did before. But I do want to mention another method. The other method to change size is with this tool. And I would mention this tool earlier today, the free transform tool. The free transform tool is great for text because you could really see the size. The only thing is you have to hold down shift. And why? If you don't hold down shift, you're going to distort the letters, and that's going to look very wrong. So if you're going to use the free transform tool, keep your shift key down and make it smaller. Now I want to point something out. What I want to do with mine is I want to make is always the same width as the word piece. So I'm holding down shift with the free transform tool, and I'm moving it around till I get just what I want out of it. This is a pretty common look. Piece is always. So is always now fits the same width as the most important word. Okay. So this is called a text block. I'm going to animate the word piece as its own text block. I'm going to animate is always together so it can move as a unit as the next text block. All right, let's get the type tool, go underneath that, and we're going to type beautiful. And beautiful spelt strangely. And again, you could change the size. It doesn't have to be the same as mine. But if you want to do it the same way, again, remember, you could either use this feature to change size with, or the transform tool while holding shift, right? Don't let this do that. So I'm going to hold down shift if I want to use the free transform tool. Okay. I want to add Walt Whitman to this, but I think, let me just think, do I really want to do that? Yeah, why not? All right, let's get the type tool. Click underneath it. And I'd like you to get yourself a little dash and write Walt Whitman. Obviously, that has to be smaller, right? And furthermore, it could be a different font, right? It's not the quote, so maybe it makes sense to have a completely different font. I think I'm going to make mine smaller first. So I'm going to click it with the black arrow, and I think I'm just going to use this feature on the right side and get it nice and small. If you want to change the font, you already know how. It's also on the right side. Hang on a second here. There we go. And I don't know what kind of font I want. I would kind of want a script font. Oh, that's not bad. All right, I'm going to take this. I got to remind you, we don't have the same fonts, so you might have to choose for yourself. So what we're doing now is very much what a graphic designer does. You know, we're making decisions about how a block of text or a whole page of text is going to look. The only thing that's different is we're going to move this so that this only shows up at the end of our movie. The whole idea of kinetic type is a little bit of suspense as the parts arrive. And when they arrive, you're going to see this design. Still, though, I made one error that I wish I hadn't. I wish we'd chosen a background color first, you know, to make sure you like the look of the font. So let's pick a background color now and see how it goes. So to pick a background color, you have to make sure that nothing is selected. So I'm going to get my black arrow, click off of everything. Again, I come to the properties palette. And I should see this. It says stage with a white box next to it. If I don't, I may be in one of the other 4 tabs. Properties palette, the dock tab. And you simply click that white chip. And you can see what looks good with the font you currently chose. That looks pretty nice. I don't know how peaceful it looks. And of course, if we wanted to, we could come back and change the color of any of the text. If you do want to do that, you get your black arrow, click on the text you want to change, and on the right, you'll see your color feature, as well as at the bottom of the toolbar. With text, you want to use fill colors. I'm way too picky for this. I think I'm just going to stop there. Okay. How is everybody? It's a good time to ask. All right. Because we're almost ready to make this stuff move. I can't stress enough, though, this step of getting the design to look good for the conclusion of your kinetic type is critical. The font that feels right, the colors that feel right, the sizes that feel right, the relationships that feel right. I want to mention something kind of cool. You could take your black arrow and drag over everything if you wanted to move it all together. I'm using my arrow key. Or if you just wanted to drag it. Guess I was happy with where it was. All right. Now, what we're going to do next is make symbols out of each block. Now we have 4 blocks here. The word peace is always is a block. Beautiful is a block, and then dash Walt Whitman is a block. So we have to pick them carefully and one at a time. I'd like you to get your black arrow, click on the top word, and be sure you're getting the right word because they overlap. You might actually be clicking the wrong word. So be very careful. I'm clicking the word peace, and I'm going to control click so I could convert it to a symbol. This is just what we did with the square earlier today, right? And also what we did last week. I'm going to name it peace, and in the library, it'll be easy for me to see. Peace. Then I click OK. Then I carefully click on the next text block, is always. I'm looking very carefully to make sure that I really got it. And then I control click on it. Again, convert to symbol. And I'm going to write is always. Oops. That's just so that I know what they are when I look in the library. Right? They're all going to be graphic symbols. The best thing you could classic tween, and we're just preparing our artwork for that classic tween. Do beautiful. Again, control click or right click it, convert to symbol. And I'm going to write beautiful there. Click OK. And last but not least, Walt Whitman. Convert to symbol. By the way, you could call it anything as long as it helps you identify it. I'm just going to call this one Walt. I know what it is. And I'm going to click OK. All right. If you took a peek in your library now, you should see all those text blocks. They're all named. I click through them. Basically, these are my actors now, right? They're all named and they're neatly laid out in the library. They're ready to classic tween. Now, look, I could tell by your faces, a lot of you guys are finding this rather smooth, and that makes me happy because I was a bad teacher yesterday. God, was it humbling. You guys were so lucky. I don't know where my brain was at. Really, literally, after class, I'm like, why did I say that? This was the smarter way to do that. And the other thing, it's just like, that's hard being human. But since we are human, if you have a question so far, ask me now, because we need those steps in place to be able to do the rest. Do you feel confident that all your symbols are made? You see them in the library? I guess that's my main concern. So before we get to tweening, we need these blocks to be on their own layers. So in the past, it was a lot of steps, but Adobe actually made it rather easy now. So I want to zoom back so I can see my stage. So I'm using these, I'm in the upper right now, upper right corner here, and I'm backing up a little. Just making sure that I really like it, because this is going to be hard to change anything after the next steps. Okay. Now, we need to select all 4 blocks and move them to their own layers. There's 3 ways to do it. Command A always means select all, or Control A on Windows. That's cool. Another way to do it is to click the keyframe, since they all live in one keyframe. And lastly, I could just take the black arrow and do this. Press and drag With the black arrow, it is the selection tool. Make sure I touch all 4 blocks and they're selected. Command A is probably fastest. If they're all selected, we're going to use this very cool feature from the Modify menu. So make sure your 4 blocks are selected, click Modify, go to Timeline, and notice this amazing feature called Distribute to Layers. I want to stop for a minute because I think 1 or 2 of you may use Illustrator, and I know several of you are going into the animation department. I could use this even with an illustration I brought from somewhere else, and it'll take all the parts and give them separate layers, which is really cool because maybe I want the mountains to be separate from the person who's walking in front of the mountains. Well, let's see how it behaves. Modify, Timeline, Distribute to Layers. Now we're all on different size computers, and I'm imagining some people can't see their layers. I'm on a laptop right now, so I want to set it up so I could see the layers. So I'm bringing my mouse down toward the timeline where the layers live, and right on the edge is a double arrow. If I bring my cursor down, the double arrow means I could press and drag it up. So I want to make sure you can see all the layers. There's currently 5. So again, you have to bring your mouse down, your cursor, right to this white edge of the timeline, and you could drag it up or down. Okay, now if you notice, you got a layer named after each of those graphic symbols. That's very cool. And you got one mysteriously empty layer that we want to throw out. The reason that layer is empty is you lifted the artwork off of that layer, which was called layer 1, and said distribute to new layers. So that layer is obsolete. Let's throw it out. I'd like you to click on layer 1. Notice there's a trash can and other tools right above it. Just click the trash can, and you're left with 4 layers with artwork in it. I want to do one more thing to prepare our layers. You notice my layers are in a crazy order? Like if you look on the screen, it looks great. But if you look at my layers, it goes, Walt, beautiful, is always peace. I don't know about you, but that's going to confuse the hell out of me. So I always rearrange the layers to match what I'm seeing on the stage. The top layer should be peace. So look what I'm going to do. I'm going down to the layer names, and I'm pressing on peace, and I'm dragging it all the way to the top. I'm in the lower left now. I want the next one to be is always, so it matches the stage. So I click on that layer, drag it up right under peace, and I keep going till they're in order. Beautiful comes next. So I drag that up. For the record, you could do this project without that step. It's just confusing. And I don't know about you, but I find life incredibly confusing. So I really do need socks in a sock drawer, or I'm never going to find them. So this is that same kind of logic of just saying very neat so that all your energy could be applied toward being creative and being effective and not falling over goofy stuff. Okay, so you got 4 layers, hopefully stacked in a helpful order. And what I want to do next is show you the lightest weight form of kinetic type animation. And you could join me on this. The word piece is in frame 1, and that's fine. But the next one is always, I'm going to click the keyframe. So I'm on the layers. It's got 1 black keyframe. I'm going to press it once to select it, and then I'm going to press again and drag it over to frame 10. It's going to start almost a half a second later. I'm going to go to the next layer down where it says beautiful, and I'm going to select that keyframe. I'm going to bring it another 10 frames further, way out to 20. Make sure it doesn't go to the other layer, right? It should stay on its own layer. And as you might expect, I'm going to do that same routine with the credit to Whitman. So I'm going down to that layer. I click the keyframe. I press, and I'm going to drag it all the way over to 30. Now, if we play this animation now, we're going to have an animation, but it's going to be problematic. You could hit return or enter on your keyboard to see what we've got. Let me just get in there. So that's not a very good animation. They are coming in order, but each one disappears. And we're going to use F5 to fix this. So what's happening is the first layer, the one with piece in it, that lives for 1/24th of a second. You know, that's one short lifespan, shorter than a housefly, right? So I don't know how long I want it, but I'm going to guess right now, I'm going to let it live all the way up to 2 seconds in frame 48. So on layer 1, find frame 48, right under the 2-second mark. And remember how F5 was the key that added time? So you might need your FN key depending on your computer's preferences. So I'm holding down my FN key and tapping F5. The others are still short though, so the others are going to still flash around like that. Let's go down to each layer so that every word has got this 2-second lifespan. So each layer now is getting extended out to frame 48 or around there. You're F5ing because you don't want to copy any artwork or anything like that. You're just adding time. Now, if you play the animation, it got a little better. We're going to make it even better, right? I do want to point something out though. This is a really common technique. It's fast, it's easy, it gets the eye to look. At the end, the person gets the satisfaction of having read the whole thing. And next time you see commercials, like maybe you have Hulu at home, the cheap Hulu, the one I have. You too? With all the commercials? I don't want them to extort another $10 from me every month just to not have commercials.
Did they raise the prices for
Did they?
cable? I heard they did.
They probably. What doesn't raise prices? Really? But all the same, you'll notice now kinetic type all over the place, particularly in commercials or at the beginning of a movie or at the end of a movie. Anyway, I want to tell you what I have in mind. Could you bring the playhead back to the beginning? I want each word to do 2 fancy tricks. I want it to slide in, not just show up. Now, I don't want it to slide from a mile away, just like an inch away. Slide in. And if we get all the slides to work, I also want them to fade in, right? So they're all going to be transparent. And as they slide in, you'll see them. Now, the main trick is I want the word piece to come in from your left, is always from the right, beautiful from the left, and Walt Whitman from the right. So in other words, we're going to alternate sides. We need classic tweening for that, right? That's why we made the symbols to begin with. So could you go to frame 1 of the piece layer, the keyframe, the black dot itself, right? Either control click or right click it and ask for a classic tween. This time the whole bar turned purple. I want you to go to the first keyframe, right? The first keyframe with art in it. So in other words, what I'm saying is not the hollow ones, they don't have art in it. The black ones do. So I'm going to the next layer is always. We drag that keyframe over to 10. It's easy to find because it's a black one. And I'm going to control click that or right click it. And I'm going to turn on the classic tween for that also. I'm going to go to each initial frame, one at a time, and turn on the classic tween. I'm coming all the way down now. Being very careful, I click classic tween and not the others. Now, it's going to look different. It's going to look the same, actually, when you play it, right? We're just preparing for the slides. All right, now listen, I want to give you a heads up. The next thing takes a little bit more thought, right? And I want to say a couple words to you before we get started. You know, if you got a favorite movie out there and you could tell someone the whole movie, so you know how the movie starts. Let's say it's about somebody's day and it starts with breakfast. You know, in the middle of the day, something happens at lunch, and then an even bigger event happens at dinner. Whoever shot that movie didn't shoot it in that order. You know, they shot for convenience. They were like, oh, wow, I could only get the dinner location on Friday. So we're going to actually shoot the end of the movie on first. So one thing you get used to when you're working with continuity, sequence, motion, you don't always do things in order. So I want you to join me on something that'll help that make more sense. You got to follow this one exactly. So let's go to the layer called piece. And you got a keyframe in frame 1. I want to copy that keyframe to frame 10. Now the keyframe houses the artwork. So essentially I'm copying the artwork, its location, its color, its everything to frame 10. And the best way to do that is click in frame 10 on the piece layer and F6. Now remember, F6 typically copies the last keyframe on that layer. So now frame 1 says piece, and so does frame 10. Why? You should be seeing 2 keyframes with a black arrow between them. I want to go back to frame 1 and move the word piece on stage over. So in frame 1, that word is now moved over. But you copied it first in frame 10, so it's still at the original location. Check this out. So what we're going to do is we're going to copy that same idea, but each block is going to come from the alternating side, the opposite side. So is always is going to come from the right. So I want you to go to your is always layer. Notice that it started in frame 10. So we're going to use F6 to copy it 10 frames further over in frame 20. Just be sure you're in the right layer. So I'm on that layer called is always. I'm going to frame 20 and I'm F6ing. So I've got 2 keyframes there also. This one is kind of like an anchor. You know, this is saying, oh, this is where I want it to arrive. And then we back up to the earlier frame and change where it left from. You know, where did it leave? So first you want to check, do you have the 2 keyframes? If so, go back to the first, or on the same layer now, the one called is always. And you could take the word is always and drag it a bit to the right. By the way, if you want help keeping it straight, you could hold down Shift while you drag it. Shift constrains things to straight lines. If that worked, though, you should be able to rewind and play it to see where we're going. So you know I want you to do the same thing with the next line. If you're feeling crystal clear, you want to do it without me, you go right ahead. If you want to join me, join me. So I'm going to the next layer for the word beautiful. I see its first frame is on 20. And I'm going to copy it 10 frames over, just to stick with the rhythm. So I'm going 10 frames over. And I use my cool F6 key. Again, a lot of us need our function key. Not everybody. So again, I got 2 keyframe animation. I've often called this bookends. To make anything move, you need at least 2 keyframes. You know, the bookends of that movement. Where I start, where I finish. All right, if you've got your 2 keyframes on the new layer, go back to the first and drag that word beautiful a bit to the left. I'm holding the Shift key down so it doesn't squiggle up and down. If you want to test it, rewind and play it. Nice. Just for the interest of practice, I'm even going to have the name of the writer do the same thing. Walt Whitman's got his own layer at the bottom. In mine, the artwork, I'm calling it, you know, the text, starts in frame 30. So I'm going 10 frames further and F6ing. And now we've done this 3 times, you know, I'm hoping it gets clearer. I made a duplicate, mostly to tell it the location. You know, this is where you should be by the time you're done moving. And I go back And I honestly could drag this anywhere I want and it's going to work. But I'm going to drag it to the right. Whenever you're ready, rewind it. Play it. Listen, before I feel, we're going to go further, by the way, right? I'm kind of showing you like animation light, animation a little heavier, animation a little heavier. We're going to kind of head that way into the deep water a little bit, right? But I would like everybody to save this somewhere, because if it crashed now, that would be nasty, right? So I'm going to go ahead and save mine also. File menu, save. Give it a name. So I think I'm going to call it piece. You can call it kinetic type if you want. Piece.fla. Yeah, and choose a home for it, wherever you want to put it. Just make sure you know where you're putting it. Guys, listen, you're all at different levels, and some of you have a lot of experience in computers. Some have almost none. So forgive me if I say obvious things here and there. But if you save this, you could continue working on it anytime, you know, just because you feel like exploring. You know, you just double click it, it'll open Animate for you. All right. Now I'm going to ask you guys a question. Well, actually, my question is, do you have any questions? Anybody? No? You
Nope,
must.
I'm good.
You're good? All right.
Nope,
You know,
never had a question.
You know something? I want to keep my cool because I felt so bad after my rotten class yesterday. You know, the class, they look happy enough, but they're a supportive bunch of people anyway.
Run class.
Well, it's, you know, I work at two schools. I work at FIT, and their class is an illustration class. You know, so it's literally wall-to-wall drawing. But it's really,
Oh, okay.
really hard though. So everybody's starting to panic, and it's the wrong time for the teacher to be at like half-mast. I'll make it up to them. You know, it's happened to you guys. No one's perfect. Anyway, so I want them to fade in, right? So at first we had only timing. Peace is always beautiful. Walt Whitman. Then we added slides. Peace is always beautiful. Walt Whitman. What's even cooler to have them fade in. So let's be really clear. That means zero opacity, right? Opacity means, can you see it? Opacity at 0 is you can't. Now this program though, you know, strangely, there are 3 words that graphic design programs use for the same thing. Opacity, transparency, and alpha. Alpha is used for other meanings too, so that's even worse. This program calls it alpha. Let's try out some alpha together. So I wanted to go back to frame 1. Now the word piece just starts its slide there. Now if we tell that image in frame 1 to be set to alpha 0, it's going to be invisible, but the next keyframe will still be at 100%. So you want to go to frame 1, and I need to show you something. If I went right to the properties palette, I don't see the thing called color effect, and that's what I want. So I want to point out, you need to do 2 things first. Go to the correct frame, and it's got to be a keyframe, one with a black dot. Then click the artwork 1 time. Be careful not to double click it. 1 click. Then if you look on the properties palette, you'll see this very cool feature called color effects. I want you to click color effects. They're all cool, by the way. But right now I want to try out alpha. Alpha could be set with a slider for how transparent you want it. You want yours either at 0 or really close to 0. Then when you play your animation, this is what it does. That word fades in on its way. Nice. So essentially, we're going to do this on each word. Let's try it on the next text block down. So on the is always layer, there's 2 keyframes. You want to be careful that it's the first one that's invisible, right? Because it's going to fade in, not fade out, right? So you're going to the first keyframe. The feature does not show up on the properties palette because I have to click the artwork also one time. Find the keyframe, click the artwork. So then go to alpha. It's probably going to remember the number you just used. If it does, great. If not, just set it yourself. And if you want to test it, go ahead. If that's working out, go to the next layer. So in all cases, in our Kinetic Type project, we want the first keyframe to have art set to invisible. So here I am on my first keyframe. I click the artwork once. The whole color effect menu shows up, and I'm going back to alpha. And I'm also going to do the last one. First keyframe, click the artwork, choose alpha. I think we better save again. Make sure it's current and play it. Cool. All right. Now, I want to, oh gosh, what I need to do is get my cord. I moved rooms and I left my electric cord downstairs, and the way this week's been, give me a minute. I promise I'll be under a minute. One second here. All right, there we go, back in business. Okay, so I want to mention a couple things about all of this. That is a really shrunk down version of it. But like, imagine you were doing a whole speech. I want to give you a peek at something. I'm going to do a short visit to YouTube. And I want to mention that if you search Kinetic Type, right, you'll see type comes up really early, or Kinetic Typography. It's so popular, and people learn this for all kinds of fields. So you'd see animators here, you're going to see video people here, multimedia people, they're all coming here. Now, they're not all using Adobe Animate. They're using After Effects a lot, another very common one, right? Just harder to draw in. But I'm going to go right to the top one. And I just want to show you something kind of at random. I like that one? Not really. How about this one? All right, here we go.
So, I see you received the free ticket I sent you. I'm glad. I did so want you to be here. You see, it doesn't matter if you catch me and send me back to the asylum. Gordon's been driven mad. I've proved my point. I've demonstrated that there's no difference between me and everyone else. All it takes is one bad day to reduce the sanest man alive to lunacy. That's how far the world is from where I am. Just one bad day. You had a bad day once. Am I right? I know I am. Why else would you dress up as a fly?
Give me a second though. We'll finish it because it's short. But there's two things I want to point out. One is he's not doing one phrase, he's doing lots of phrases. And the artist is choosing not to have every word move in isolated ways. Some cases, whole phrases are coming out. So you're not trying to follow each word. I've seen people do it with every letter. Terribly boring. So he's really choosing how to block these words out. What's probably just as interesting or more interesting is the amount of artwork that's being integrated with the text. All these Batman references in a very simple vector artwork drawn in programs like Adobe Animate or Adobe Illustrator in this case.
Perhaps you had a bad day that drove you as crazy as everybody else. Only you won't admit it. You have to keep pretending that life makes sense, that there's some point to all this struggling. God, you make me want to puke. I mean, what is it with you? What made you what you are? Girlfriend killed by the mob, maybe? Brother carved up by some mother?
This dude is negative.
Something like
I had
that.
enough of this. Jeez.
Something like that.
I knew there was a reason I stopped watching Batman. Don't
Because
hold
of
it against
Joker?
me, Batman. It's Joker stuff. Yeah. I'm I'm much older, you guys, right? So I remember when Batman comics were dark, but not like everyone's. Anyway, why so serious? All right, any case, I want to come back and show you some stuff on the one that we're working on, right? So for one, how would we bring a graphic element into this animation that we already made, right? So how about at the end of the animation, a box appears behind the word piece, right? Because we're not going to get busy drawing now. We don't really have enough time for it. But if we wanted a box to show up behind the word piece, well, let's analyze this for a second. The word piece is coming from the left. Then it's followed by all the action going on, right? And what if at this point, after Walt Whitman slides in, a box shows up behind the word piece and fades in? Let's try it out. So we're going to actually have this start about frame 40, but we need a new layer. So could everybody look at the layer palette? And above the current layers is a plus sign, a little tiny plus sign. I'd like you to click it once. Now, that's probably going to be layer 6, but I'd like you to change its name. So again, if you missed it, right in the lower left, right above your current layers is a tiny plus sign. Make one layer, then double click the layer name. And I'm going to call mine box because the numbers don't mean anything. Now, the next thing is your layer may have landed in a random place. Mine did, but I want it under the word piece. So I'm going to drag that layer up right under the word piece. So this layer that's currently empty, called box, it's right under the layer for piece. Now, here's where things get kind of interesting. If I want that box to first show up later in the timeline, I can't use that empty keyframe in frame 1. I don't want the box there in frame 1. I want it way down the road in frame 40. So we have to do something new, right? We have to do something called insert blank keyframe. So a keyframe is the only place you could draw. It's the only place you could bring in a photograph, bring in music, bring in a video, bring in a word. You always need a keyframe. So this is what I'd like you to do. On that new layer you just made, frame 40 or thereabouts, control click there or right click and choose exactly this, insert blank keyframe. So you get this hollow keyframe, like all the frame 1s have on every layer, but this time you made your own because your actor's showing up late. Uh-oh. This could be my internet connection again or Zoom, I don't know. You may be hearing me, but I'm not hearing you or seeing you. Ah, everyone just came back. Hi, are we all good?
Yeah, I was hearing you fine.
Good. On my end, everybody disappeared for a minute. A random moment of loneliness. Okay. All right, so you got a new layer. You made your own blank keyframe in frame 40 to introduce a new character at that moment in time. Let's go get the rectangle tool. Now remember, you're making a box to go behind the word piece, right? So pick your color accordingly. And we could always change the color if you don't like it. So I just chose a fill color. I'm actually going to click on that white box behind it. That's the outline, and turn it off because I don't really want an outline. So that's this thing that looks like a picture frame. But instead of picking a color, I'm going to use this little thing that means color of none. It's okay to have an outline color though. And I'm going to try it out. I'm already highlighted the keyframe we just made, and this is all I'm going to do. I'm going to get the transform tool to move it, change its size, see what I can do with it. Remember the transform tool? I used it a couple times today. And I think I'm going to actually make it a little smaller than expected. Like a band behind the word. I kind of like it. I'm going to keep it. So I'm being very methodical, right? I'm really thinking about where I want this graphic element and when. So here mine is starting. The keyframe just went black. I'm in frame 40, right? And I'm going to start animating in a moment. I'm stalling though, because I could see people are moving their boxes and, you know, thinking it through. Okay. What's the first thing you have to do to artwork before you could tween it?
So convert it to a symbol.
Yes, Khalik. All right, please select it. Then again, right click or control click and choose convert to symbol. And we're sticking really close to graphic symbols, right? And I'm going to call this, I don't have anything called box. I'm just going to call it box. It's a graphic symbol, and click OK. You know, by the way, a quick word to the animators in the room, the people heading this way. You know, there are 3 kinds of symbol in this program, but animators use graphic symbol by far the most. They don't use buttons at all. That's for programmers. There's the other one's called movie clips. It does some cool tricks, but it also has some severe limitations. So we're sticking with graphic symbols. All right, so Khalik got that one. Anybody else? What do I do now to turn on the classic tween? Oh, I know some of you know it. Some of you take notes about everything. Well, you go to the timeline. Specific, you go to the keyframe where you want to start. So we're going to this keyframe, right? The new one. It should be black because that's where your new artwork is. And then you either right click or control click and choose create classic tween. Now, before I do mine, I'm going to mention something. The thing that confuses people early is always the same. Do I click the artwork or the keyframe? Do I click the artwork or the layer? You know, that's the basic idea. Is it a stage-based thing or a timeline-based thing? And it takes a while to figure out which is which. We're on a timeline-based thing, so I'm going to the first keyframe. I'm going to control click right on it or right click on it, and I'm going to choose create classic tween. And we see the purple bar. Okay. Now I'm going to actually do the whole process of making this thing emerge from the background, but I already know I'm not going to like the timing. So we're going to fix the timing last. So join me on this. I got a keyframe with the artwork, but what I want is I want it to grow larger behind the word piece. Small, then large. But this is the full size. So I want to keep it in a way. Let's go to the end of the timeline. So in other words, if you've got 5 frames, that's enough for now. Just go to the end of the timeline on that layer to F6 it there. This is very similar logic to what we did with all the words, right? This one, the second one, the one you just F6'd, that's going to stay put. That's the box full size. We're going to go back to the first frame now and change it. So once you got those bookends, right, the two keyframes with a tween in it, each case we're going to the earlier one and making a change. I'm not going to do a slide this time. This is what I'm going to do instead. I'm getting the free transform tool, and I'm going to take this box and I'm going to make it really small. And this is what that's going to produce. Did you see it? Here it comes. I'm going to zoom in a little. All right. Did it work? Excellent. So what else could we do? You know, well, one, I do want to mention a little more timing, and then I think I want to squeeze in some color changes since we haven't really dealt with that much. Maybe some other stuff while we're here. But about the timing.
Wait, I have a question.
Oh, good.
Mine did something weird. I didn't do it on purpose.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It does like a flip.
Flip. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that happen. So I want to show you something quickly. You might want to Command Z out of there, but I want to
Yeah.
show you something. So give me a minute. That happens a lot. So say I had a rectangle here. Let me give it a different color so it's easier to see. I made it a symbol. I'm not even going to name this one. I'm just going to let it be. I go to the keyframe and tell it to tween. And maybe I'm having it, you know, here it is, frame one. I'm going to have it move over and take a whole second to move over. All right, that's no big deal, right? It's just a little slide.
Mhm.
But if I tell one of them with the free transform tool to say squeeze, what should happen, ideally, is it gets wider as it slides. And let's see if it does. Now, this time I got lucky. But what if sometimes it doesn't understand, but also sometimes I'll do this instead. What if I squeeze it so much that it flipped over? Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I might have done
Right?
that.
That's possible that that happened. Let's see what that does. So Anne, I want to mention, I'll do that on purpose sometimes. Like a leaf falling in the air will do this. Now, this is a kind of a simplified 3D. It's a little hard to control though. You know, the weird angle is not something I'm thrilled with, but there you have it. Glad you asked. Okay, so about timing. You know, if I wanted that box to take longer to fade in, I could do it easily, but I will have to fix some byproduct problems. Why don't you join me on this just to get a taste of it? You know how we used F5 to make layers longer? Well, an even cooler use of F5 is to make one sequence longer. So if you click in the layer where box is, between the first keyframe and the second one, anywhere in between, F5 will do this. So if you click between keyframes, so we're talking about tweens though, you're in a tween, you click between the keyframes, every time you F5, you're adding a frame. Now what's going to happen is that animation is going to take longer, but everything else is going to disappear. So right now, what I've got is this. So the box took longer, but it left everything else behind. All right. Now I know some of you already guessed what the solution is, but I want to be very clear. I clicked in between any two keyframes, F5 to spread it out. That means more time, right? More frames is more time. Essentially, more frames means slower and less frames means faster. But since everything else disappeared, I'm going to go back to the other use of F5, which is click at the end, F5, so it doesn't disappear. I'm going to go to every layer that disappeared and use F5 to spread it out. And I'm going to save again while I'm at it. I'm going to squeeze in a little bit more, but I would like everyone to save. And I do want to mention a little bit about the Swift file, .swf. The file that we've been saving is .fla, and it got that name from Flash, which is the parent of Adobe Animate. So it's still a .fla, but you can't show an FLA on the internet, and you can't show it on a television. So we have all kinds of output files. We have animated GIFs, we have videos that could be MOV, it could even be MP4, and other formats. So I guess those would be the two big ones. I'll use GIF if it's short and there's no sound, right? But SWF, SWF, used to be king. And the difference between a SWF and the others was programmers could install programming. So you could tell a word, if you hit another word, explode. Or you could let people play games and the program would say when someone scored to change a number. And it used a language called ActionScript, and it's a long, ugly story. It was one of the things that destroyed Flash because programmers were doing things they shouldn't. But we use the Swift now sometimes just for a preview. Let's try it out. So to make a Swift, hold down Command and press Return, or hold down Control and press Enter. And what it's showing you is what this looks like outside of the program in its own window. It's using something called Flash Player, and it keeps looping. I'm kind of curious, did that work? It did work for most of you. Did it not work for anybody? It's Command Return on a Mac, Control Enter on Windows. Every now and then it won't work because Flash Player installs separately, and a computer might have it blocked since evildoers used to use it. But I could tell you something I don't like. If this thing's gonna loop, I want it to pause at the end before it plays over. And guess what? It's crazy easy. So let's make a pause, do a little bit of color, and wrap it up. So I'm going to press the little red button to close my Swift. If I want to pause, all I'm going to do is add a second or 2 seconds onto every layer. So a second's 24 frames. So that would take me out to frame 84. I'm going to go all the way out to 4 seconds. Right, so that's frame 96, by the way. I'm simply going to F5 every layer. And since I'm not giving it any new instructions, it's just going to sit there before it loops. In Animate, you can't tell because we usually don't have looping on. But in the Swift, you'll see. Pause, loop. Pause, loop. And if the pause isn't enough, I'll pause sometimes 10 seconds. If I'm doing an ad, I'll go way out there. But you go out as far as you like. And do the F5 trick. All right, I think we did enough for a day, but I did promise to include one more thing. So I'm just going to make this small point. Now it's got a long pause, easy to read. Then it's going to play again. And then another long pause, easy to read. And it plays again. All right. For the last thing, I think we're going to take one of these words and have it change color. And I think what would be cool, since the word beautiful fades in and slides in so nicely, maybe at some point it changes to its own color. So let's see what that would look like and how it would take place. So I want you to find the beautiful layer. And I want you to find its keyframes just to reorient yourself. You probably started it, the artwork in frame 20. It slid in and faded in at about frame 30. Now I'm going to ask you to choose when you want it to start changing color. Now to make that choice, You could say, oh, well, I want to go a whole second down or even further down. But when you choose a spot, and I don't mind if you're guessing a little right now, it's a good way to learn. Go down that timeline a little and F6 to copy the last keyframe there. Make sure you're on the correct layer. Make sure you're some distance from its prior keyframe. Click in there and use your F6 key. Now, essentially, that gap between this keyframe and the last one is a pause. The word beautiful arrived in frame 30 and it's just sitting there all the way to the next keyframe. In my case, that's frame 65. At that moment, I wanted to start tinting to a new color. Do you want the tint to happen in 10 frames? Like all the slides, like all the fades? Would you like the tint to be slower so it's a little bit more dramatic? 20 frames? So, if you'd like it to have the same timing as everything else, go another 10 frames over and F6. If you'd like it to be slower, go even further before you F6. So I'm going to let you make that choice. You already chose when the new transformation begins. Go 10, 20, even 30 frames further and F6 again. These two keyframes now are my new bookends, right? In this case, the first one is correct. That's the color the audience expects. The one on the right is the surprise. I'm going to change the color there. If you just made two keyframes, please choose the latter one, the one on the right. Now, you may remember that color effects only shows up if you click the artwork. You choose the keyframe, but you have to click the artwork once. We did that with alpha. We're going to do the same thing for tint. Second keyframe, click the artwork, come over here to color effects and choose tint. So it's a neighbor of alpha, but we're going to use tint. Tint has two features you want. This box, so you could pick the color you want. This slider, so you choose how much of that color. Zero tint, well, is zero tint. It's the original color. So if you were subtle, you'd only add a little. I want the whole thing, so I'm going up to 100. Now when you play, the word beautiful slide in, achieve its first color, hang out for however long you left, and then it'll tint between these last two keyframes. Nice. I'm gonna watch it one more time. Save as you go, guys. Does anybody have any questions about today's material? Oh boy, do I love a satisfied group.
None so far.
Great. So listen, I hope no one's too disappointed. We are going to take that small detour. The way I have it currently planned is on Thursday. Some of you are going to like that stuff even more. It's a brief detour. The schools asked me to introduce P5. As I said, it's a kind of programming language, very popular in schools and with artists. So it's got that dual role as far as I could tell. A lot of people I know learned it just for schools as a way to introduce what programming can be in the context of media and multimedia. So we're going to take that little detour, day or two. We're going to come back, the return of animation. I kind of want to compare how these two different methods make things move. And then we'll come back to animate and just warm up with the topic we began today and head toward our final project. So let me just glance at the handout, make sure that I didn't forget anything important. If you want to look at this later, please be sure to save what you did. So this is basically all the steps from today. So again, I know a lot of you take notes, which is great, and this will be on YouTube later. But it also breaks it down fairly well. You know, let's take a look here, though. For anyone who wants to move forward, I do want to mention a couple things in reverse order. This is one of the best short movies ever made about how animators create the illusion of life. And it came out of the Disney camp. I want to be very frank. I'm not a big fan of Disney, but I'm a big fan of learning from Disney. They just over 100 years, they've learned a lot and they have experts there. I don't like a lot of what they do. I don't like every story having to be about orphans. As a parent, it makes me cringe a little. But regardless, this is maybe 2-3 minutes long and it's amazing. This takes the principles of the earlier animation, because this is famous and every living animator has seen it. And it breaks it down into 12 parts. So these are short, they're kind of fun to view. If anyone wants more tutorials just to move forward and animate, here's a link to a bunch of good tutorials. Folks, I'm shot. I think I'm going to take off today. Does anyone want to talk to me separately right after class? I can make that happen. No?
This time, yeah.
Not today.
Yeah, plus I gotta go and cook.
I got to go and slap myself out of it. That was a lot of fun, though, guys. I'll see you all on Thursday for P5.
All
See
right,
you
then.
guys.
Take care, Professor.
See ya.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good
Pleasure as always.
Thank you, Professor.
You're very welcome, Shiying. See you guys. See you, Brandon. See you, YouTube.